Hey brother, let's discuss Silo. I want to make it absolutely clear so we are on the same page from the start. I see TV shows as a lower forms of storytelling compared to actual cinema. Yet still, I kinda liked season 1 of Silo as much as I possibly able to like TV shows. I will break down main creative decision and structure and characters and will try to figure out what stops Silo from being a good piece of storytelling and instead it becomes usual, ordinary, bad TV show. Let's start with first episode, and in my opinion it's really strong. In terms of quality, useful scenes and pacing, you can almost treat it like standalone film. In just 1 hour this episode builds a world, deliver a full and complete story, shows us characters we genuinely start to care about, and even gives a pretty interesting hook for what's coming next. On the one hand, I love the idea of dedicating entire episode to exposition, because I hate being thrown into an empty world without understanding what's going on, and after this episode I had a clear image of the world. On the other hand, this first episode feels completely disconnected from the main story. We lose characters we spent so much effort building a warm, intimate, emotional bonds with. And you know, first episode is very important in establishing this emotional connection, and we lose it. The whole episode revolves around childbirth. It nicely sets up themes of child control, implants, maybe human experiments, maybe labs, but these things never come up again in the show. And it raises a question: if in fact your show is about surveillance, then why should you give so much emotional weight to motherhood and birth control from the first minutes? Because for me, this show ended up feeling like it was show about child control, not surveillance. Because child control story gave me real emotions and characters take a lot of real actions and transform entirely because of theme of birth control. And surveillance story just shows us people staring at monitors, the main character doesn't even learn about it until episode 7 or 8, and to be honest, it doesn't even have proper impact on the story. Judicial just know where to run. In terms of real consequences, it's the only meaning of it, and it ends up to be less than what we see in birth control arc. This episode also introduces us this theme of secret hacking, secret files, hard drive, how the station works, and we start to imagine this IT hacking rebellion. But then all of that disappears until episode 9 and turns out to not matter at all. It leads us only to police catching Jules. So whole this hack theme also was presented in first episode, it gains some weight and then it disappears to nowhere. And of course first episode has just much stronger script than the rest of the season. It is full of impactful events, emotional beats, fast pacing and non-linear structure. Compared to it, the rest of the show feels slow and flat. Honestly, I just don't want to watch first episode and other 9 episodes as single show. I either want to watch this first episode as a personal, tactile family drama, or the other 9 episodes of Silo as this cold, lonely detective story. In my opinion, they don't stack together at all. Next, I want to talk how this show handles its characters. And in my opinion, this is where it really makes a mistake. As I said before, in the early episodes we've introduced to a bunch of characters. The main characters are built with strong emotional connections, and the supporting characters come with their own themes and intrigue, but then the show just gets rid of them all. In the very first episode they take away this woman we emotionally connected with. Okay, maybe her death could be a very strong brick giving birth to Holston character, but in second episode Holston is gone too. We expect a deep transformation, maybe he'll start seeking the truth from inside the system, but again he just dies. Everything he contributes to the story happens off screen and just gets uncovered later by Juliet. George immediately carries interesting potential. There is this idea that he could be a hacker, a system breaker, a future rebel, but he's killed in the same episode before we were able to connect with him. We never even saw his relationship with Juliet properly, and then for the rest of the season we keep seeing this barely established character through flashback, and we have to watch how Juliet develop a relationship with a corpse, basically. So for me, George never had the potential to become a compelling character. In episode 3, they kill pretty likable Mayor. Her death has no emotional or plot significance. So it might have been better to let her live and explore this conspiracy from inside as Mayor maybe, but no, we see her very useless death. In episode 4, showrunners kill this Cope, just in the moment when these characters started to make sense, as Juliet got into law enforcement, as someone seeking revenge for his beloved Mayor, as Jules' potential father figure. In this moment he gets killed right away. Showrunners dedicate all third episode to this tense industrial drama, introducing these workers who could become real characters after this pretty emotional scene. But then those characters are completely forgotten and don't take part in the story. Showrunners resurrect them in season 2 when you already forget about them and you don't care about them at all. They even introduce this cop girl and create some kind of dynamics and possible interesting relationships between her and Juliet, and then she is also gone forever. So after all this death, we have Juliet, who is left completely alone. She is surrounded by enemies, painful memories, faceless function partner, and a bunch of random suspects and witnesses. And that even can sound meaningful, like yeah bro, that's the point. Like she's alone, she has no one to rely on, she's trapped, and there was never any hope against this all-powerful system. It could sound cool if we were watching a movie where all this stuff happens in like 30 to 60 minutes. But we are watching this loneliness and emptiness for like 6 episodes, for 5 hours. So instead of feeling that oppressive loneliness, what we see is a character walking through a boring empty world surrounded by boring empty characters. Not a single character in the second half of the show becomes even slightly interesting. Now let's talk about overall structure of the show. It starts very strong and interesting and engaging, but then everything very quickly sinks into dullness. Again, episode 1 has too good pacing and structure, and after that the show loses momentum almost instantly, but still, show feels promising. First, the non-linear structure is cool. We start in the present, then jump back 2 years, then return to the present, then jump 3 months back again. It feels dynamic and layered, and you get used to it. You expect we at least will jump to Halston investigation or George things, but then we always stay in present time only with Jules flashbacks, so shows becomes a little bit flat. Second, the intrigue around George's death, the link to Halston's wife, and how it all ties to Juliet. It all feels like an interesting setup. Who is this mysterious woman? What she will contribute to such a complex story? But it feels a little bit disappointing that Jules is completely helpless, she knows nothing and has no connections. Like, we are falling from very capable characters with knowledge to a character who can do nothing. And third, Juliet being a mechanic is a great hook. It's an interesting role for a woman character, and it's nicely reinforced with this reactor plotline. And then she gets thrown into this authoritarian world with a completely new dangerous sheriff role. And again, it's an interesting setup. We want to see how she will handle all of this and how she will learn to be a sheriff. But then, of course, instead of developing this sheriff plotline, everything starts to just dragging out. The story slows down into this endless cycle of boring notes, assassination attempts, police politics, walking back and forth, and dull conversations. I generally don't like detective genre, but I feel like there it's especially uninteresting. Like, I instantly forgot everything about these boring side quests. And even Juliet's role as a sheriff ends up being completely pointless. The show doesn't explore this police aspect of her role in any meaningful way. She just dumps everything on her assistants, they help her, and all of it's wrapped in this police political framework full of laws and procedures, but without real meaning. Like, she could be a mechanic or hacker or toilet cleaner and still do the same investigation. So instead of her becoming interesting sheriff, we almost entirely losing her connection to mechanics characters and that she was a mechanic for all her life. I also want to talk about world building, because it might look like world building is the strongest aspect of Silo, but in my opinion it feels really empty and fake. And that's strange since we are supposedly dealing with dozens of unique world building elements. I've broken world building into a few categories. The first is practicality of world building. When I think about strong world building examples, I immediately remember something practical, like set of rules that affect character behavior and day-to-day life. For example, in Dune, everything around water and desert heat, the suits, the tents, Freeman rituals, the sacred place, and even this little more deep, like water feels as extremely practical element of day-to-day life you have to play around, or everything about vibration in the desert. We see a lot of examples how characters facing this vibration and warmth rule, and it makes desert very interesting place in Dune. In Blade Runner we have this hologram girl who is the main part of whole character life. In Psycho-Pass, arrests and weapons depend directly on mental state scans. In Attack on Titans, the entire combat system and training are built around flying gear and massive titans. Or for example, in Martian, it's very interesting to see how character adapts to these circumstances. Like, you know, in Silo, there's nothing practical, there are no real rules in this world. Character sits in front of computers. The computers look different, but there's nothing unique about it. They work in factories, and there's nothing special about this factory. They sit at desk, walk around, the setting only look unique, but they act exactly like people from our world. I see no difference between living in Silo and living in small town. So it's not a unique world building with a complex rules, it all feels like set dressing, like decoration for something very usual. But showrunners kinda try to sell us that this is absolutely different and unique world, but it is not a world, it is just a decoration. The second issue with the world building is that culture feels extremely empty, vague and shallow. I don't buy that these people have lived in total isolation for 300 years. It feels like they were dropped into the bunker 1 year ago. Their behavior, customs, culture, lifestyle, none of it is any different from any average modern day TV show. Like for example, they have these public viewing rooms where people watch others working on the surface. It is the most important thing happening in society life. And the most they do is bet on whether the person will wipe the camera. No rituals, no celebration, no songs, no prayers, no farewells, just nothing. Or for example, the screen itself should have become a central cultural symbol. From the first day there should be astrologists and astronomers and people who study wind and sun position, but there's none of that. Just a single guy doing it after 300 years. Also, the idea that people just wipe the camera is absolutely absurd and stupid, and you can't believe in it. Like, it's obvious that the first person to step outside and realize their whole life was a lie would probably just smash the camera or try to run over the hill or even set a signal with this mechanical sign language or secret hidden paper list like this. Also, this festival in first episode feels extremely functional and fake. Like, it basically screams, look, we're trapped in concrete box, but we celebrating freedom. You get it? You get it? They are prisoners who think they are free. And in parallel, we see these two characters who are the only ones who realize it. So it doesn't feel like organic culture world building element, it just feels forced. We also never really see what the citizens of the Silo do outside of mechanics and IT work. Overall, Silo presents its setting like it's absolutely different world, but it feels like a slightly weird office building. Third, the world building has no real consequences. We keep hearing that people are arming themselves, that rumors are spreading, that there's tension in the air, maybe even a sense of revolution, but we never actually see any of it. The show could have built that through the mechanics, not waiting 10 series until season 2 to show it. Like, I already gave up on your show before you was able to establish this plotline. We could have seen how the people react to what's happening with Juliet. We're always told about crimes and the sheriff role, but it is just words. We never see any crimes being committed by anyone other than judicial. We learn learn that people smuggle relics, but we never see how or why they use them. We are told that everyone fears judicial and people are worried that people start to die and disappear, but no one does anything. So everything I see in this world, in this society, is just words. So for me, the only decent world building elements in the Silo are childbirth, because we see it really impacts the character's life, and the hacking, because there are actual rules and stakes. Only certain computers can read the drive, signals need to be rerouted, networks need to be accessed. Everything else feels like just decoration for me. Now let's quickly talk about the whole plot line, because for me story and characters feels extremely predictable. I don't know how the show is doing it, but from the first moment this guy appeared, I immediately knew he would be the main antagonist. The judge from the first appearance seems as completely irrelevant and not bad, and of course this dude not for a single second seems like someone who seeks power. The same goes for the ending, this idea that there are many silos and there are some authoritarian government behind it all, or that these screens are lie. I don't know how they're doing it, but this is so obvious it makes climax very disappointing. Also, this show feels very soft and tame, and I'm even surprised it's like 18+. Even though characters die more often than in Games of Thrones, their deaths are so incredibly soft, and these two villains never feel threatening. Maybe that was part of the point, like they are not evil, they honestly serve in the system, but anyway, it makes them weak antagonists. As for the actors, I have to mention Rebecca Ferguson. I love her as actress, I love her as woman, but this show feels like a one-woman play. Either all other actors and characters are just too weak, or maybe since she's both the lead actor and the executive producer, she just pulled everything around herself. And in some moment it becomes boring to look at Rebecca only. Probably the only one thing I have no problems with in Silo is visual and design. You know, like yes, everything does feel a little bit CGI and fake, but considering this is a 9-hour long TV show with a massive amount of graphics and set design, I can forgive this. The show has a very strong and recognizable design. It reminds me of Star Wars with those rounded walls, windows and doors. It has this cool retro sci-fi vibe. The color palette is also very pleasant. I really like how often warm colors are used in the interiors, or how many soft fabric elements are present, especially characters' clothes, which are very unusual for sci-fi. It makes the whole series feel incredibly cozy. I think it's very important for the series, since whole this format is built around retention, it is crucial to make a space where a viewer want to spend time. And I want to spend my time in Silo, compared for example to the Andor, which I personally found very cold and unpleasant. I never really wanted to touch this world. Also, the lighting is beautiful in Silo. A lot of different colors, warm cool color contrasts. It's never boring to look at. And by the way, it makes the contrast with season 2. Right away you notice how the lighting and color have degraded. On the other hand, overall show color usage feels very spread and random. Like there's no color coding to separate different locations or moments. Sure, the camera room is blue, the surface exit is pale and white, the underground is cold and dark, but anyway, the rest of the show feels like a blend of random colors. So in your memory it all merged in this colorful mess. For example, I mentioned this in my Romulus video, how that movie handles color coding. And I will not watch season 2 of Silo. In 1 hour I quickly skimmed it through and it seems much worse than first season. So that was my analysis of Silo. Like I said before, I am not a fan of TV shows in general. They always stretch out the story, they always want to cash in on a future seasons, they rely too much on the cheap cliffhangers, they replace everything with endless dialogues, art direction and cinematography are almost always weaker, and there are always tons of useless characters you feel nothing for. So the Silo is guilty of all these things. But I have to admit, the show touched something in me. It didn't give me real emotions, my interest in the plot died after 3 episodes, but overall atmosphere, vibe, spirit, visual warmth, they kinda stick with me. So it was pretty nice to sit and just waste time in this world, even though it's completely fake and bad storytelling. I invite you to my Discord and or Telegram channel, where I would love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, how you love me, maybe. Okay? And also, if you really like this content and you want me to make same deep video about your favorite movie or series or cartoon or anime, discuss detail with me, send me money, and I will make such a beautiful, honest, deep video about your stuff.